This is Mark Guerrero. Welcome to East LA Music Stories, episode 25. My guest is Mr. Art Sanchez, who's played with tons of groups. We have lots to talk about, starting with the Unusuals, the Runabouts, Strange Brew, Old Time Religion, Yaqui, Frankie, Cannibal, Garcia, Cannibal, the Headhunters band. He's played with Willie G, Little Ray, on and on. So we got a lot of good stuff to talk about. Welcome, Art. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Really good. Really
Yeah.
good. Great to talk to you. So how did you start out in music?
My father played acoustic guitar for relaxation, and he passed away in '63. And my friend Ron Cretin, who became Ron Edwards professionally, um, we were good friends in elementary school, and he saw my father's guitar one day, and he says, "Hey, why don't you play guitar?" And I went, "Hey, that's a good idea." And it just kind of started the ball rolling. I started picking it up and playing along with everything on television and every song I heard, and it just kind of escalated. Ron eventually played bass with Macondo, and he also has since passed away.
With Maxi Baez?
Yeah, yeah. And I started playing a group called the Valiants in the '60s. Ray Chavez, David Ramos, Bobby Marcus, and Rudy Trujillo.
And
They were
you were playing guitar at the time?
I was playing guitar, and Rudy had a motorcycle accident, so he was just basically injured and just couldn't play anymore. So they called me in, and I thought it was to play guitar. They said, "No, we need a bass player. Just play the low strings on your guitar." So I hadn't even thought about bass, but once I did, I really got hooked.
I didn't mention in the introduction that you are a bass player. This explains how you became a bass player. You started as a guitar player, but
Yeah,
but I would just like to say that in my opinion, you're one of the absolute best bass players to ever come out of East LA. And so
thank you.
I want everybody to know that I
Yeah.
played with you. I know exactly what you do, and it's great.
Hmm.
So go ahead. So now you're playing bass on the first four strings on a guitar.
Going back to how I got interested in music, my mother always had a radio on, and I got really used to it. She said that when I was a baby, I wouldn't want to eat unless my high chair was by the radio. And so a lot of people that I heard back in the '50s and '60s growing up, I eventually worked with a lot of those people, which was kind of a dream come true. So that was a big inspiration and push for me to become a musician.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just started working with group after group. Had a little group with the guys from the Valiants called the Opals that nobody heard of. And then I was asked to audition for the Unusuals, and they had been around for a while. Friends of mine were in the band, and my cousin Kenny Lujan was playing sax for them. And so I auditioned maybe twice, and got in the band and just had a lot of fun. Learned a lot about playing, and professionally means you're getting paid. So started making a living off it. I was in my early teens. We actually played. We played a lot of places, but we played the a wedding for a wedding in Watts during the riots. And, yeah, and we kept asking, "Are you sure they're still going to have this?" And they were like, "Yeah, they're still doing it." So we drove down there, and there were cars on fire and sirens going, and we were stopped like every other block, and they were as surprised as we were. But it turned out to be a great gig because I think everybody just wanted to forget about what was going on.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it was fun. It was a fun band. We also played at I guess it was the Kaleidoscope. We had a horn section, but we also played, by that time, we were playing little rock tunes, and we were playing songs by the Kinks and Rolling Stones and stuff. So our manager found a way to get us in there.
That was a major venue at the time on Sunset Strip, and you opened for, was it the Yellow Pages or what was that?
Yellow Pages, yeah, yeah. And the members and the two singers in the Unusuals were Frank Guerrero and Gene Sesma. And I don't remember the drummer, but he sat real low. We called him Low Rider because he just sat there with his hands up, and excellent guy. We had guitar players, Robert Warren and Joe Smith. I don't remember keyboardist.
You said Robert who?
Robert Warren,
The one that was in Mark and the Escorts?
yeah, and
Wow.
Charlie Rubacava on trumpet, who later played guitar for the Delighters. Excellent musician.
And I have a flyer here that I found. It was at the Big Kennedy Hall. Some of the flyers they would write Big Kennedy Hall. It was
Yeah.
really just the Kennedy Hall. But I think they got jealous because the big union,
Yeah,
we're going to be the Big Kennedy Hall. Anyway, the Midnighters featuring the great Willie G, the Ambertones, the VIPs, who later became El Chicano, the
Mhm.
Prophets, they were a really good band, the Impalas with our friend Ron Reyes in the band, the Runabouts, who you later played with,
Yes. Yeah.
and the Unusuals. And there's two more bands, the Domains and the Exotics. Exotics were a good band. They were one of our rival bands.
Yeah.
7 p.m. to 1 a.m., Kennedy Hall. Donation $2. Free cake and punch served. Come early, doors closed at capacity, dressy dress. So that's a flyer that I have.
Yeah, they weren't saying dress to impress yet. Yeah.
No,
Remember that? Or no capris, please.
yes. Boys wear ties, girls dress nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember ever getting cake at one of those gigs.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Probably just this one had it, but so that was the Unusuals. And anything else about that band in particular you'd like to bring up?
Well, one of the drummers who came in later was Mark Mora.
Oh yes.
Yeah, Mark Mora, and we became good friends. So when we left the Unusuals, and I don't remember how that came about. I don't know if it broke up or it must have broken up. But Mark got in with the Runabouts with Bobby Torres, Eddie Torres' brother. I just remember there was a keyboard player named Dee Dee, and I don't remember anyone else that was in it. But Mark called and said they needed a bass player, so I got in with them.
So that's how it happened.
Yeah, played the Union a lot.
The Big Union?
Yeah, and that's where one night Jimmy Reed was going to perform.
Wow.
You got me running, you got me hiding, I think it was. And the promoter, Bobby's brother, Eddie, came up and asked me if I'd be interested in playing bass, and needed a bass player. So I went backstage and we went over songs and keys, and I did the show with him. And I was like, wow, this is really fun. The blues stuff, and it was Jimmy Reed,
Nice.
Then maybe a couple months later, he came through again, and Eddie came up and asked and said, hey, he'd like you to play again. So that was kind of cool. That was my big excitement for many years. I still mention it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You had to be pretty young, like what, 15 or something?
I was like 15.
Amazing.
Yeah. Another big moment at those days was that the dance, The Egyptian, came out. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember that one.
That was pretty wild. The first time I saw it was at the Big Union, and everyone started doing this, and I was like, okay.
That was decades before the Bangles and Walk Like an Egyptian.
Yeah. Probably where their parents got the idea.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So after the Runabouts, Alan Naya was the saxophone player and I think the singer for the Impalas.
Yes, he was a singer.
Yeah. And he called me and said he was putting a band together and he had a guitar player. And so he picked me up and we went to Ron Reyes's house. And that's the first time I met Ron. And we were like, oh, yeah, okay, sure. I know who you are. I think we called Mark. So Mark was on drums. So
Mark Mora?
Mark Mora again. I think David Valverde was on keyboards, and I think that was it. We called ourselves the Summits, and it was pretty good. It didn't last long, but we did a lot of gigs, a lot of weddings, parties, stuff like that.
And you never actually played with the Impalas though, right?
No, no,
Well, so the Summits, was that after the Impalas or before, do you think?
that was after.
Yeah, yeah.
Ron
So,
had
so the Impalas had Ron Reyes on guitar and Alan I was lead singer,
yeah,
and you joined them
yeah,
and became the Summits.
yeah, yeah. Impala's also had Willie Alvarez, bass player,
Oh yeah?
and his
Who's
brother
Joey?
Joey Alvarez, I think, was playing bass, drums. Sorry, but I'm not too sure if his name was Joey, but his older brother was playing drums.
Okay.
Um,
And the Impalas made a lot of records, you know,
yeah,
they were managed by Eddie Torres, who managed the Midnighters, and they made a few singles,
mhm.
and they were very popular. We used to play a lot of gigs with them.
Howard lied. I
Yeah,
remember listening to Huggy Boy, and was there somebody called Lucky Pierre or something like that?
I don't remember that.
Can't remember that. That played their, you know, all the East Side songs and stuff, so Land of a Thousand Dances and Video Boulevard, and Impala's doing Polyglide, the instrumental, or Rosalie with the Slauson Brothers.
And they also did a version of the Young Rascals' "Come On Up." Remember that one?
Wow. Yeah, yeah.
Ronnie sang lead on it.
Yeah. Right.
So, but anyway, you wound up having a long association with Ron Reyes. It goes
Yeah,
a couple of
went-
decades. Yeah, that's when it
yeah,
started.
I talked to him last night, as a matter of fact.
Mhm.
Yeah, so where was I? Oh, the Summits. And then Ron went into the Army. So Danny Diaz took his place. And
Great
that's when-
guitar player.
yeah. And again, there's so many talented musicians in East LA that Danny was a joy to work with. He's got a great personality, and I don't see him too often or talk to him too often, but we still hook up sometimes.
I did one of these episodes on Danny. So
Yeah, yeah,
another great story.
yeah.
So then you played with them for how long would you say, the Summits?
Oh, maybe. Well, Ron came back, and so it had to be a couple of years.
Hmm.
And then let's see. After that, I'm sure there's other groups, but what keeps coming to my mind is that Ron called and said he wanted to put a band together, and he found a keyboardist, an Armenian keyboardist, and I was like, "Oh, really? Yeah, let's go." Went to go hear John McKinnon, who was working with a group called the New Edition. Nothing, you know, not
Yeah.
the New Edition, but bass player. Oh, I can't think of his name. He was excellent. His father was a famous musician too. But anyway, then he contacted Tommy Lozano, who had just gotten back from New York singing with Cannibal and the Headhunters on the East Coast doing shows. And he was out there with George and Eddie Serrano and George Ochoa
Right.
from the Slauson Brothers, and Eddie with the Enchantments.
At that time, in around 68, in New York, it was Frankie Cannibal Garcia, George Ochoa, and Eddie Serrano and Tommy Lasano were the Headhunters.
Yeah,
The original Headhunters were no longer with him at that time.
yeah,
And I know for a fact too, because I was in New York visiting my brother that year and got together with George and we hung out. It's great.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. And I know Ray Jimenez was over there too.
Yeah, Ray was there, Little Ray, and he would sing with him once in a while too.
Yeah. And so Tommy had just gotten back, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm interested." And we called Mark Mora again. And so he was on drums, and we started Strange Brew. And at first, when they told me that they wanted to call it Strange Brew, I went, "Wow, you know, by this time Cream had recorded, and it was one of their songs." And I was like, "I don't know how I feel about calling it the band after someone's song."
Yeah.
But then they said, "Well, you know, we have an Armenian, we have an Italian, and Chicanos. It's a Strange Brew."
That's true.
Yeah, I was like, "Okay."
That made sense.
Yeah. So we were like, okay. So we went with that. And we played right away. We were doing Rascal tunes and, I can't really remember too many of what we did, but it was current stuff. Every once in a while, we would throw in Vanilla Fudge doing You Keep Me Hanging On.
That was great at the time, yeah.
Yeah, I
And
remember
we played a gig together, you said at the Montebello Armory, was it?
Montebello Armory. Yeah,
And it
yeah.
must have been, my band at that time was the Men from Sound.
Men from Sound and Euclid Avenue Express was there. And I think that was Conrad on bass, I think. Conrad Lozano. I'm not sure.
I don't remember that, but I do remember Euclid Avenue Express. We did another gig with them. They were a real kind of a hippie band.
Yeah, yeah. And there was someone else. It might have been the Evergreen Blues. You know,
Evergreen Blues.
might have been
I'm
talking.
glad you brought that up. Now, I think we might have played together at Cantwell High School too. I'll have a memory of that, but I remember playing with you guys at least once.
Yeah.
And but the Evergreen Blues are important to bring up here because the Evergreen Blues, who later became Elijah, great band, and I've done shows on those guys. You were very good friends with Steve Lawrence, the sax player.
Yeah.
And that led to an opportunity for you. Well, first of all, you used to hang out with him and have some wild and crazy times.
Yeah.
As you,
And I always kind of like the fly on the wall. I'd go to rehearsals when they were rehearsing, and I'd go on gigs with them, and even excursions like going to Disneyland. I'd be there just hanging out. They were a fun group. Just saying they were great. I loved listening to them.
and so they got a record deal. They were one of the first groups, or if not the first group in East LA that I knew of, that got a major record deal.
Yeah.
It was with Mercury Records,
Mhm.
and they got an album out, which was pretty amazing. And so then that kind of led to your opportunity. Talk about that.
Yeah. Strange Brew was going to play in Linwood. I believe it was at Linwood Park. It was indoor or outdoors, but I had played there years before with the Unusuals, and we opened for the Leaves, the guys that did
Remember that?
their version of faster version of Hey Joe.
Yeah.
And but we were playing Linwood, and I just got an idea. I just thought, hey, I'll call Steve and ask him if he could call his producer and if he needs another band to record his songs, because their producer was a songwriter
Mm-hmm.
and pretty successful. I mean, he had written a instrumental that I think the Ventures might have recorded, and he wrote Midnight Confessions, which was a biggie.
Which the Evergreen Blues recorded first, and
Yeah.
then the Grassroots recorded the same arrangement and got the hit.
Yeah, the same thing. It was
Carbon
identical,
copy.
different guys. Yeah.
Uh,
And to see if he'd come down and if he's interested. And so we did our show before the Evergreen Blues, and Jimmy King was backstage, and he approached us and said, "Hey, I like you guys. Do you have any originals?" And we just looked at each other and went, no. So he goes, "Well, get some originals, and I have some songs, and we'll see what happens." So Ron and I and George Ochoa's brother, John Ochoa, the other half of the Slauson brothers, um, locked ourselves in Ron's mother's garage and wrote two songs that went on the album, If You Want Me and Crossroads of Life. So we called Jimmy, and he came down and heard the songs, and he said, okay, I think I could, let's record these demos and see what happens. And we recorded a couple of his songs. And a little while later, he called and said, hey, ABC's interested. They'd like to do an album. So we just started working on our songs and Jimmy's. John McKeon and Tommy got together, and Ron and I would get together, and or all of us would. So, there's a song on the album called Foggy Day that was written at the beach. We had all gone to the beach, and it was kind of foggy, and Ron picked up a guitar, and that song just came out. So
now, something could be brought up here is that Evergreen Blues did their first album with Mercury, but they did a second album with ABC. So it must have been at that time that they had the connection at ABC that Jimmy King got you guys with ABC. So
yeah,
they were probably with ABC at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Makes
I
sense.
was kind of hoping for ABC Dunhill because that was kind of a hip label, a subsidiary, and
Yeah.
Steppenwolf and others. I can't remember who else was on it, but we did get to record American recorders, and that was fun. You did too. You also recorded there.
At that time, my band, the Men from Sound, had evolved into, we called ourselves 1984, named after the book by George Orwell, 1984. This
Yeah.
was in 1968 or
Yeah.
9. And we were all doing a similar thing by coincidence. You kind of got hooked up with the Evergreen Blues to get with Jimmy King and all that. We wound up getting a deal with Cap Records, KAPP,
I remember.
and our producer happened to be, an engineer, happened to be your engineer, Tommy Coe.
Yeah.
And so that's how it all got tied together. We also recorded at American Studios
Yeah.
in Studio City, and that was owned by Richie Podler, who produced Steppenwolf and Three Dog Night. So it was a real hot place to record. We did our record there. You did some of your record there, or the whole thing?
The whole album,
Okay.
pretty much. Yeah.
Now, were the Evergreen Blues recording there too, or no? Do you know?
I do not know.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so another thing happened that's really weird is that Jimmy King, your manager, as a songwriter, he used a different name, L.T. Josie.
Yeah.
So Midnight Confessions is by L.T. Josie. And he wrote another song called Three's a Crowd.
Yes.
And I don't know who did it first. I think the Evergreen Blues did it first. Probably. So the Evergreen Blues did Three's a Crowd. And funnily enough, is that a word, funnily? Funny enough.
Could be.
It is now. Funny enough, Manny Esparza, the great singer for Evergreen Blues, I don't want to sing that song. He didn't want to sing it. So Steve Lawrence sang lead on it.
Yeah.
Okay. So now Tommy Coe gives the same song to us. And I said, I don't want to sing that song. And I gave it to Ernie, the drummer. And I didn't want to sing it for two reasons. One, at the time I was writing songs and I just wanted to sing my own songs.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, it wasn't quite my style. I didn't really like it enough. But I gave it to Ernie, and Ernie sang the hell out of it. He sang really great on it.
Yeah.
And so we did it. Evergreen Blues did it, and you guys were given the song too.
Yeah.
We all had the same engineer, Tommy Coe.
Yeah.
And so there's 3 versions of it now, and I just put them up on YouTube a week ago, all 3 in a row, just to see how different they are. But but isn't that funny that you had the connection with Elijah, but we were on this whole other track, but we wound up with the same engineer in the same studio, all doing the same song.
Jeez.
That's showbiz, hey.
Yeah, that's the Tommy connection.
Yeah, but Tommy was a great guy, wasn't he?
Yeah, really great engineer and a great guy. Really nice.
He was also a musician who had played with Buck Owens, and he wrote a hit song called How the Time Flies.
Did he?
Yeah, you can look it up. Yeah, it's kind of a doo-wop song.
Mm-hmm.
So he was just a wonderful guy, and we wound up recording a whole album with him later. And he was just a fantastic guy.
Yeah.
So then what happened with Strange Brew?
Well, going back to the studio real quick, one morning we showed up because I was still in high school when we were recording, so we'd have to find times to go in. Sometimes I'd be recording all night and go to school the next day.
Oh, yeah.
But the one morning everyone was all excited because Donovan had been in the night before. They said George Harrison came in one night, and we were just like really impressed, especially being so young and from East LA, going, hey, we're in the same studios with some of the big names.
Yeah.
That was kind of fun. But yeah, Strange Brew, we played the Whiskey a Go Go, and we played the Troubadour. We opened in a concert in Lancaster. We opened for Sweetwater. It was Evergreen Blues and Strange Brew and Sweetwater.
I know Sweetwater. They played at Woodstock.
Yeah, did they? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they did.
And their keyboard player, Alex Del Zoppo, did a few Mark and the Escorts reunions with us in recent years. Great guy.
Really? I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah.
Another separation degree.
I know. Small world.
And we were working on a second album, and I'm not really quite sure how that came about, but that happens. Sometimes the gigs come in a lot, sometimes they don't. I think we were working on some songs for a second album, and then things just started dismantling or separating
What happened to the first album? Did it get any promotion?
Other than the performances, not that I know of. I think Mark Morris said he knew somebody that bought the album in Hawaii, so
Got around a bit.
it was traveling, but to my knowledge, there was no promo for us, just word of mouth type stuff. You know. We didn't do interviews or, there's even very little photos of us, like studio work or anything.
You did a few gigs in Hollywood and other gigs too, or not too much?
Yeah, I think we were doing casuals and parties, but not many. Well, I'm just going to mention that I think George Ochoa from the Slauson Brothers was good friends and neighbors with Ron Reyes. So George told Ron that he was just putting a band together with a guy named Eddie Serrano and Steve Verdugo and Andy Orozco on drums, and they needed a guitar player and bass player. So we went over to just check it out and see what it was like. And they were doing Beatles songs and Crosby, Stills and Nash and doing originals. And they asked if we wanted to join, and Ron and I thought about it and said, yeah, okay.
And that became Old Time Religion.
Old Time Religion.
But before we get into that, which is a big subject, I got to mention that what happened in recent years, a few years ago, I got an email from some guy who was asking me, well, do you know anything about Strange Brew, or do you know anybody from Strange Brew? I said, as a matter of fact, I do. And I hooked you up, and it turned out that he was writing a book on psychedelic bands of the 60s, and you guys got featured in that book.
Yeah, well, we were included. That's for sure. There were over 100 bands of the psychedelic nature, and bands that didn't really go much farther than they wanted to. But there was always a buzz. There was always a buzz about Strange Brew. People asking questions: Who were we? Where were they? For a long time, there was a South American band called Los Impalas, was it? Do you remember that? And there was a member in the band, Ron Reyes. So they thought Ron had moved to South America and started this band. And but it was great. Through your connection, I was interviewed, several interviews. I worked with, his name is, what is his name? Dave Handyside. I just happen to have the book right here.
Oh, right. Look at that. Hold it up a little higher.
The Psychedelic Digest.
Whoa.
On the side there.
Wow, it's a big book.
Doing a commercial for his book.
Yeah, and you guys are in a few pages, right? 3 or 4 pages?
We got a Strange Brew album cover, which is there.
Yeah.
And all of us with our short hair.
Yeah.
And the interview went like 3 pages, which was really cool.
Did he only talk to you, or did he talk to Ron or anybody else?
No, he just talked to me. I called the other guys. And we just put our heads together, remembering things, basically all the things that I was probably sharing now. That got a chance. I talked to Tommy, who lives in Las Vegas, So that it was nice making connections. I hadn't talked to him in a while. John McKinion has a tire shop in Fullerton. I still, every once in a while, we call each other, or I'll take my car down there to get some tires or get work on.
Nice.
and Ron Reyes. So, you know,
Still
Ron's-
playing, Ron's still playing.
yeah. But yeah, that was nice. I thank you for that.
Well, it's just like I said, it's just because I guess some of the work that I do, people find me, anything East LA or Chicano, people call me, and he just contacted me.
Mhm.
And so often they'll say, "Do you know this certain band?" As a matter of fact, I do.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just I'm glad it worked out, man, and it's great for the band's legacy that you're in that book.
There's still albums on the internet selling for like 75, $80.
Yeah,
Which is, you know, album collectors.
yeah,
Album collectors. And
it's crazy.
there's Dave Handeside is a real nice guy. The people in the book, other bands, Eddie Olmos is one of his early bands, Pacific Ocean,
Mhm.
written about. And a friend of mine, Hank Dandini, who played in my group Magic, who was with Paul Revere and the Raiders for a while. Um, his one of his early bands is written about in there.
Nice.
So all these connections, you know.
Yeah, man, that's fantastic. So that's really cool, man. I'm happy about that. So getting back to Old Time Religion. Now,
Yeah,
wasn't that OLDE for old
yeah,
and
yeah.
Time TYME
Uh,
religion?
Legend.
And it wasn't a gospel group. It sounds like the name of a gospel group.
We started rehearsing at Steve Verdugo's parents' house, and I'm trying to remember. I was still in high school, so we started playing at a bar on Beverly Boulevard, and it was fun. It was a great hangout. I'd never heard of it, but it was a great place. Um, and then we moved on to the 49er in Old El Monte, which is I don't know if it's still there, but it was a cool place as far as the streets and the buildings. And um, right next door was a club called Mr. Hess, and the Spiral Staircase were playing there. And years later, we got to back up. Ron and I got to back up.
I love you more today than yesterday.
Pat Upton,
Pat Upton.
another great guy. But at the 49er, we just felt free to just experiment with. Ron would put his guitar down and sing "If You Want It" by Badfinger. You know, it was like, okay, if you feel like doing that, you know, and we did it. And it was an interesting place. We had a lot of fun there. Um, there was a dark side to playing nightclubs and stuff, and unfortunately, a big fight broke out one night, and there was a guy stabbed on the dance floor, and died. And so we were, you know, as musicians, we are told to just keep playing if a fight breaks out. If you can't, just you know, kind of take the attention away from the fight. But it was kind of hard to do. We stopped playing because this guy was on the floor breathing his last breaths, and we were just like, oh, this is crazy. You know, that could have been a sign to me at a young age that maybe I shouldn't be doing this, but you know, there's a dark side everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
And was the lineup, did you have Mark Moore on drums on that at the first?
we had at the beginning, we had Andy Orozco.
Was he the one playing at the 49er?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we all took a trip to Vasquez Rocks. We just took band trips places, and right after that he got ill, and it was taking him a long time to recover. And so we started making calls, and I think we called Leon. Yeah, we called Leon Becken, who's a friend of yours, and
Yes.
he was a friend of mine. He's a great guy, good drummer. And we played Carolina Lanes. We went there.
I remember that. So
Yeah.
Mark Moore came in after Leon?
He came in after Leon.
Okay, got it. Okay, so that's a drummer thing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Eddie Serrano was one of the lead singers.
Yeah.
Eddie Serrano had previously been in the Enchantments, a very
Yes.
popular East LA band in the mid-60s. They made a record called I'm in Love with Your Daughter. They might have made more than one record, but
Mhm.
yeah. So he was the lead singer of the Enchantments. We did gigs with them too.
Yeah.
And then he winds up, like I said, with Cannibal in New York. Then he winds up in Old Time Religion.
I'm religion, yeah.
The other singer was George Ochoa.
Yeah.
So it's Lawson Brothers.
Brother
But he
was-
played in my band. He was in the Men from Sound
Yeah.
in 1966, I think. He sang
Yeah.
with us for about a year. And that was a really, really good band, that lineup, you know.
You did a good interview with him.
Oh, yes. I got a show at George. You know.
Yeah.
He's got a history himself. So
Yeah.
so that was a really good band. You had those two great frontmen, lead singers, and you had
Mhm.
Steve Verdugo, who was another singer. You had three lead singers.
Yeah.
You were on bass, Ronnie Reyes on guitar, and those three drummers in succession. That was Old Time Religion. Then you wound up doing two singles on Warner Brothers Records, no less. Now, how did that
Yes.
happen? Let's talk about that.
Well, both George and Steve are excellent songwriters, and you know, of course, that was just the next natural step to start recording. And you know, they were they were on the Warner Brothers label, but I don't remember where we recorded. It might have
Really?
been Capitol Records, maybe, or Sunset Recorders, but I really can't remember. I've been trying to remember.
And when you talked to the guys yesterday, nobody remembered or it didn't come up?
You know, George might remember. You know, so maybe we could.
George, I don't know if he remembers much about anything at this point. Just a semi
Well,
joke.
we're all getting up there.
Oh yeah, true. But yeah, he
Uh,
definitely had some battles.
Yeah, but they came out. It was the Swimmer, and
Okay, let me get you straight on that. The
Uh-huh.
first single
Yeah,
was Gloria, I Enjoy Being With You, that George Ochoa wrote and sang. The flip side was 47 Cents,
yeah,
Steve Verdugo.
yeah.
The second single was The Swimmer, and
Mhm.
the flip side was Itchy Feeling by George.
Yeah,
So Steve had one side of each record and George had the other
yeah,
as a songwriter and as a singer.
yeah.
And tell me about those records. You remember anything else about the songs or the records?
Well, I'll tell you, when we played them, wherever we played, we'd always get requests. People would always want to hear it. 47 Cents had a big following. I was really surprised that people would really.
A little blues song, right? All I got is 47 cents to spend. It's on some wine, right?
Some wine. Let's go get a short dog, take it home, and go to bed.
That's right.
Yeah. And the Swimmer was fun because a lot of people have mentioned, when they mention Old Time Religion, they mention like Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and a lot of, you know, intricate harmonies and stuff.
Right.
Everybody in the band sang, so I don't know.
That was kind of the dichotomy. Well, I'm getting too fancy here. The thing, because Old Time Religion, the George songs were sort of Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Yeah,
Glory, I Enjoy Being With You, and Itchy Feeling had three-part harmony,
very
much all the way through, very CSN. And the
yeah.
Steve songs were a whole different thing. 47 Cents was just one lead vocal, and I think the Swimmer just had one lead vocal. Yeah.
We just some oohs in the background.
Some oohs, okay.
Steve.
But I'm just saying, so even with Yaqui later, there was always that CSN component. But
Yeah.
to that later.
Oh, yeah.
That was mainly from George, wasn't it? I would think.
Yes. George is really good with vocals and harmony arrangements, and Eddie was also good. And yeah, we always managed to just fall into a harmony when we'd hear something, which was kind of unique. It's kind
So
of
were those
fun.
three-part harmonies, was it mainly George, Eddie, and Steve would be the main three, wouldn't they, in those harmonies?
Yeah, and Ron and I.
You jumped in too?
Yeah, we'd find spots, depending on what we were doing. Yeah, the main singers were George, Steve, and Eddie. Yeah.
So that was a pretty powerful lineup. Now you played at Carolina Lanes near LAX. And I
about
went to
2 years.
2 years. I went to several of those gigs.
Yeah.
And you guys sounded really good. You guys were the house band there for a long time.
Yeah.
I saw you there with Leon on drums. I remember for sure.
Yeah. We used to have jams on Sunday, jam night, and we'd get Steve Lawrence would come in, jam. Rick Rosas,
Metal bass player
yeah, with Neil Young and Joe Walsh and
later on. Yes.
yeah, even the Buffalo Springfield, which was like your forte, which was really
Yeah,
cool.
that was one of my favorite bands. Yeah, he got to play on the reunion
Yeah,
in 2011. So yeah, it was a great venue. Earlier that decade, you guys played there. We're talking like 19, was it 70, 71 in that period, I think it was.
yeah,
And in 65, as a teenager, I went to Carolina Lanes and I saw Chuck Berry there.
yeah,
I think my godfather took me.
yeah.
And saw Chuck Berry there, and I saw the Bobby Fuller Four.
Oh
I
wow,
Fought the Law. Yeah, so there was some big time bands that played at Carolina Lanes.
yeah,
A few years later, you guys were the house band there.
yeah. It's funny. We had gone. When was it? It was 1970. We went to Bakersfield, and we went to a club. We all went up there to audition. We went to one club, and God's Children was performing there. It was,
Little Ray and Little Willie G.
and they had a small group and some girl singers, and they sounded great. And then we played, and we didn't get the job there, but we got the job at the Caravan Inn, which was down the road, right across, well, not right across, but pretty close to the Bakersfield Inn, which was a big deal at one time. That was kind of a hideaway for movie stars, and Clark Gable and all these people would go to the Bakersfield Inn and hang out,
Ooh.
get away. But we played at the Caravan for quite a while. We basically became the house band like we were at Carolina Lanes, but there at Bakersfield. So that was
Now, was
cool.
that after the singles on Warner Brothers, or was that before the singles?
I think it was before.
Mm-hmm.
But we did a great concert at Bakersfield College. It was outdoors, and I sent you some pictures, and maybe you could put them on
Okay.
time. And Eddie looked like Carlos Santana, and I think word got around that Carlos might have been performing there. So we had a massive amount of people as an audience, and it was really fun. It was one of my first really big outdoor performances, shows to play them.
Was your hair pretty long by then?
Yeah, it was getting there. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
My hair started getting long when the Beatles first came out, and I got suspended from
So
school.
did I. So did I.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
had to go home till you got a haircut.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I got kicked out of Disneyland twice. But
Ooh, that's an honor.
it was too, yeah. So yeah, I just thought rock and roll, rock and roll.
But like you told me the other day, when you posed for the Strange Brew cover, you had to get a haircut. And why
Yeah.
was that again? Because your brother was going to get married.
My
And
brother was getting married, yeah, and he told me I didn't have to cut it for the wedding, and I was like, okay, cool. And then at the last minute, he goes, you're going to have to cut your hair. Everybody's got short hair, et cetera, et cetera.
so that was your reason for having short hair. Why did Ronnie and the other guys have short hair in Strange Brew?
I do not know. I think it might have been around the time Ron came back from the army and it was growing out, but not.
But you guys did look like a hippie band where you were dressed and everything, but the hair wasn't that long.
Yeah, yeah.
But by Old Time Religion and by Yaqui, you guys had real long hair.
Yeah,
You had really long hair.
yeah. That was funny. Everybody's, I think, at that point in the 70s had, pretty long hair and stuff. And we were, just part of it, just enjoying it.
So what happened to the singles? They sounded really good. Again, no promotion. Or what did Warner Brothers do?
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea. I mean, if they played in some part of the country and the guys got royalties for it, I never heard about it. And the songwriter gets the royalties. So I don't know.
I still have both. I still have both 45s. Do you have?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so what else? I think Old Time Religion, we were playing at Carolina Lanes. By this time we had Mark Mora on drums, um, and Art Brambilla came into the picture.
Mm, another thing we share. Okay.
Yeah, so we were rehearsing at Art's house in his little house in the back, and he told us that there were some record companies interested in us, and we're just going to go check it all out and stuff. I think Motown was interested, and Playboy Records, and maybe Warner Brothers. I'm not sure.
But I think before that, what happened was Art Brambilla had been working at Capitol Records in the promotion department.
Mm-hmm.
And he convinced the executives at Capitol, why are you flying around the country looking for bands when down in East LA, 20 minutes down the freeway, there's tons of talent. So they gave him some studio time at independent studios. And so he brought in all the talented musicians and bands that he knew. And Capitol Records was going to put out one of the groups, but everybody had an opportunity to record. So he brought in Tierra with Rudy and Steve Salas. He brought in Yaqui. He brought me in, and I was a solo artist at the time. And I brought in Rick Rosas, Ernie Hernandez, John Valenzuela, and Steve Verdugo actually came in, believe it or not, and played on my first single. But we recorded, and he brought in some other people too. I'm trying to remember, but he brought in several groups. So that's when you guys came in, and we were all recording at the same studio at the same time.
He just took the talents and showed us to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you guys are in the business of recording people. Listen to this.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a cool time because at the time Art had a company called Brown Bag Productions, and he had an office across the street from the Capitol Tower on Vine Street.
Yeah.
And we were like a little family because it was Yaqui and Tierra and me, and we would have meetings there and hang out, and we were all recording in the same studio. So it was a little thing. He was trying to create like a Chicano Motown. It was a great idea.
Yeah. Yes,
and you guys wound up signed to Playboy Records. Tierra wound up with 20th Century Records, and I wound up with Capitol. They put out 2 singles of my stuff. So that's what was going on at that point. And it was cool because we were all around, we'd run into each other. Steve Salas sang on one of my songs, and we were kind of guys from Elijah came in and played their horns on a couple of songs, and we were all kind of intermingling.
Yeah. Art Brambilla had a night. We all, Tierra and us, you might have been there. I'm not sure. I remember you being there, but Phil Sonicson.
Oh yeah, the ethnomusicologist.
Yeah. He came in and we had our little case of beer, and he talked to us all night about the Yaquis, the music, how it came from there, and what this means, what that means. And it was like incredibly educational.
Now, were you guys already called Yaqui when you came and talked about it?
Yeah.
By the way, the reason you guys picked the name Yaqui was because of the Carlos Castaneda book, The Teachings of Don Juan, which was the way the Yaqui Indians used psychedelics to gain enlightenment and knowledge. And so you guys named yourself Yaqui. And then he educated you further on it, I assume.
Yeah, he did, definitely.
He's a smart guy. He's still around, from what I know.
Is he really?
Oh, yeah, I saw him a couple of years ago. He's getting way up there in age.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool too, to bring Phil in, and Phil wound up writing the liner notes for Tierra's album, and he was around.
Yeah, the Yaqui too. But let me see, I'm going to backtrack. While we were rehearsing in Art's house, we had some creative differences with Mark. And
with who?
With Mark Mora, the drummer. And so we looked around, and Eddie said he worked with a drummer because he did in the Enchantments and admirations, I think, with Ray Rodriguez on drums. And so he said, I know a drummer who can do a drum solo and dismantle his drum set at the same time.
Wow.
We're like, this we got to see. So we went to go see Ray, and sure enough, he just really had a solid sound. I've always likened him to the East LA radio, as far as just staying there and laying down a fat groove. So Ray got in the band, but before we called Ray, he had auditioned for us, and then he didn't hear from us for a while, and he was wondering, wow, I guess I didn't get it. But what was happening is Art said, I'd like you guys, before you make a decision, I'd like you to see this drummer. Right now, he's the percussionist with El Chicano. It's Rudy Regalado.
Yes.
And he took us to KCET Studios on Sunset. And we went into a room and we watched this monitor of El Chicano when we performed there. And Rudy was there playing. And we just went, wow, yeah, and he's like, well, yeah, you guys want him? Yeah, 2 drummers, that's great. So there wasn't even any thought of like choosing between one of them. We got Ray and Rudy, and which fulfilled later on. I found out one of his dreams of being a drummer was to work with another drummer. So
now, did they ever do 2 drum sets? Because I know Rudy wound up being the guy who played timbales, and
yeah.
Did he play congas also?
No,
Just timbales.
Yeah, he played timbales, but he always had a drum set on stage.
Really? So sometimes they both played at the same time?
Yeah. On some of the songs on the Yaqui album, that's 2 drummers playing.
I didn't know that. Now, yeah. I saw Rudy play with El Chicano at Magic Mountain, believe it or not, before that, like in 70. And he was playing the trap set. And he was great. I didn't know he played that because he's mainly known as a timbalero,
Yeah, and a great one. I mean, Rudy, he'd get calls to play the Tonight Show. If some Latino, somebody was playing or some style was being played, he's worked with an amazing amount of people.
Now, Rudy was from, I believe, Venezuela.
Venezuela, yeah. I want to say Caracas, but I'm not sure.
So now you got a great drummer in Ray Rodriguez. You got a great timbale player and drummer, and then you guys had a falling out with Steve Verdugo.
Yeah,
and you ended up getting Larry Cronin.
Yeah. I mean, we had all known Larry for years because, for one, he was a friend of Evergreen Blues, and his father owned Cronin's Music Store in Montebello. Yeah.
Did that help out the band? Did you get discounts or anything?
That's what we asked. I don't think we did, but
geez.
But I remembered, this is gonna just kind of like show a little bit more of the insight of our business decisions. George brought Larry over to my house to introduce him to me, and I'd already met him, but to really, as far as auditioning for the band, to take Steve's place. And Larry came in and he was wearing pigtails because it's long blonde hair.
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry. And 2 different colored socks, shorts, and a Hawaiian shirt or something. And I looked at him and I went, "You're in." You're That's perfect great. For the band.
You're right.
But he got in, and Larry played excellent. He was
great. He was freaking great.
Great, and singer and songwriter. And so we had a great time with Larry in the band, and he did the album. George would play some keyboards, but Larry was our keyboardist.
So that was the lineup for Yaqui, and that's the lineup that did the album.
Yeah. We went in and we recorded at Sound City. No, not Sound City. We might have recorded at Sound City, but I'm not sure. Sunset Recorders.
Really?
The place.
Now, according to my notes here from the interview from years ago, You said something about Ike and Tina Turner's studio. Was that part of that?
Bollig Sound. Yeah,
Is that part of where you guys recorded?
we recorded maybe 3 songs there, maybe 4.
And then it said Capitol Records. Were you at the Capitol Tower?
Capitol Records, yeah, the A Studio A, which is
Yeah, yeah, we did record it there too. Did
Yeah.
you also record at Sunset Sound or whatever the other one you were thinking about?
I'm gonna have to look at the album here because
Okay.
I was reading it the other day and it
Oh,
reminded
good.
I've got Sunset West Studios, Capitol Studios, Bollig Sound Studios in Inglewood, Independent Studios, Studio City, Remix, the famous studio that Phil Spector recorded in with the echo chamber in the basement. You remember the
You're
name?
talking about Gold Star?
Gold Star. Yeah, we recorded a few songs there.
Oh, wow. You guys recorded in like 5 studios.
Yeah, yeah. I'm surprised they didn't put Gold Star on the album. That was a fun place. You know.
Hey, go ahead.
Well, we just had a lot of fun recording. I mean, it's being creative musically is like working with clay or making a painting. You know, you just keep working at it. And then when you get to a certain point, it kind of leads you into something else until you have this real wonderful thing.
And especially when you got 5 guys all contributing, it turns into a
Yeah,
nice
yeah,
sculpture.
yeah. So we were real happy. Every time we left the studio, it was no complaints.
Well, this is worth doing. Let's go down the list. Let's go down the songs, okay? You have the album there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. First song is a Sunrise, right?
Sunrise, yes.
Okay, now let's talk about that. Now, I'm going to give you my opinion or my view. Okay, so when I heard that screamed to me Led Zeppelin influence, correct?
Oh wow. Yeah, maybe.
I think
That
so.
was all Ronnie.
Yeah,
But
okay.
Ronnie
But
was
you
up-
guys both liked Led Zeppelin, didn't you like them?
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Big
So
time.
to me, that was a very Led Zeppelin-y, slow, kind of pretty thing, but it had
Very-
that vibe to it.
Very pretty. Yeah.
And didn't the album ended with Sunset?
And set.
Back?
Yeah.
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 Okay. So that to me that was that it didn't scream Led Zeppelin, but it reminded me of Led Zeppelin. Okay. So, and this will kind of demonstrate all the influences you guys had because you guys were very diverse.
Yes.
So what's the next song?
Well, with Sunset, uh, I heard that a radio station in Florida
Mhm.
used it for a coming on or going off.
Nice. Of the whole show?
Yeah.
Nice.
And there was something else. But it just left my brain.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Ronnie had a real nice sound. It sounded like a electric guitar, maybe with a chorus sound on it, real pretty.
Yeah, chorus
And
and what is it, like a flange
Yeah,
kind of organ?
yeah. It created that peaceful sound of a sunrise at the beginning,
Yeah.
sunset at the end. So that was very clever.
Speaking of Led Zeppelin, one of the times we played the whiskey, um, Ron got a write-up, or we got a write-up, but we were just amazed that the person that did the write-up said Ron was going to be the next Jimmy Page.
Whoa.
And I was looking for it. I was wondering if I had it, and I couldn't find it.
No, another thing that happened with Ron at the whiskey that I heard was that Terry Kath of Chicago heard him and liked him. Was that true?
Oh yeah, he was there. He was there. He was up there between shows. We talked a long time. Just a great guy, great guy. A lot of stories and real good vibe. Shaka Khan was in our dressing room. The president of Playboy Records loved Yaqui, or at least he sure acted like it.
Mhm.
And when we performed, like at the Whiskey or at Santa Monica College, he showed up with an entourage, a huge group of people
Nice.
cheer and come into our dressing rooms. And it was really a joy to be signed with them as far as the encouragement. And
Nice. Did you ever meet Hugh Hefner?
no,
Did you ever
No.
get invited to the Playboy Mansion?
that was the thing. I can't remember who the president was of Playboy, but he told us that our wrap party for the album was going to be at the mansion.
Ooh,
And we went, wow, wow. Yeah. I mean, we were already going into the Sunset Playboy office almost every day for no particular reason other than
just
just
to hang.
the elevators and, but no, not really. But we were there a lot. But anyway, the mansion uh, was dropped when Hugh Hefner decided to fire from the president down everyone at the record company and replace him. And when he did, these new people could care less about who Yaqui was.
Of course, that always happens. The new administration doesn't care about the past groups.
Yeah,
Happens
yeah,
a lot.
yeah. So I remember asking somebody, are we still playing at the mansion? And they laughed and said, no,
What mansion?
yeah, you're playing on the back of a truck at Tower Records.
Is that what
And
happened?
yeah, and we were just like, well, okay, that's not too bad, but it's not the mansion. But
Yeah.
that never happened. So I was like, okay, fine, that's showbiz.
Yeah, showbiz again. So
Yeah.
what's the next song on the album after Sunrise?
Yeah. After that is It's Time for a Change.
Okay. That was George Ochoa.
Uh-huh.
And es tiempo para un cambio. It is time for a change. And
Yeah,
it's got the La Bamba chords, CFG.
yeah,
It's a very La Bamba kind of vibe.
yeah,
And that song has had legs. It's lived on.
yeah,
Was later recorded by Tierra and used in the Obama campaign, like a long time after.
yeah,
And it just came out on that list I just sent you.
yeah.
Apple Music put their top 50 Chicano recordings and their downloads, and Time for a Change was on there, and my first record, Get Your Baby, was on there, and along with our friends Cannibal, the Headhunters, the Premieres.
Mhm.
It's a cool list to be on,
Yeah, very.
And you got, and they also put your song on a compilation. What was it called? On Rhino Records.
um, Rasa Rock.
Yeah,
Rock. Yeah,
yeah. So it was on a compilation with a lot of other great
yeah,
Latin rock songs. So that song has lived on.
yeah. There was a record company in England called me once years back, and they were interested on Time for a Change to be on their Latino rock compilation in England.
Oh, nice.
But uh, they wanted me to find out who owned the rights to the name and the tapes and stuff. And I called Playboy, and they said they owned the name, but they didn't know where the masters were. And so I called the record company back, and they said, "Well, we'll just get somebody else." And they did. I'm not even sure if the record ever came out. I'm kind of curious. But going to It's Time for a Change, at that time in history, Tierra was a killer band.
Mhm.
Tierra had David Torres, Kenny Roman. David Torres played keyboards and played trumpet at the same
Yes,
time.
that's right.
Kenny Roman on drums, but on Time for a Change, he's playing timbales.
So Kenny played timbales on that.
That's Kenny on timbales, that's David Torres on horns, and
Nice.
Via, Bud,
Sax,
call him Bud,
sax, bub.
yeah, also played on that song.
So once again, see the bands cooperating, playing with each other on each other's records. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, they were great. Those musicians were great.
They had Conrad Lozano on bass.
Right.
That was Los Lobos, and he had a Ampeg SVT 15-inch speaker cabinet. Those things are like refrigerators, and I had the second half of that, which was 810s. So whenever Yaqui and Tierra did shows together, we would combine our amps.
Ooh.
So we'd combine the amps, and I would stand between Ray and Rudy's drum set. And I was in heaven. For a bass player, that's where you want to be.
Musical orgasm.
Yeah, pretty much.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So Time for a Change was a great song. It got really good reactions all the time.
Now, there's another thing about it that I heard from Mario Panacqua, right? He was involved
Yeah.
with the mix.
Uh-huh.
Mario of the Jaguars, formerly of the Jaguars in East LA, and who famously wrote the song Where Lovers Go. It's in the top 50 list that I just told you about. He told me something about you told me something about the fact that you guys recorded it really fast and he slowed it down, or vice versa. Do you remember that? Anything about that?
I think it was recorded slow and sped up.
He made it faster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, oh, that's what it was. So that made George's voice sound a little higher.
a little higher.
But
Yeah.
I think it was a good decision because it made it way more exciting. I think maybe some of the guys in the group weren't happy about that. Do you remember anything about that?
It's possible because of the tone of George's voice, and you know, sometimes when you have a groove in your mind for a song, and that's the way you recorded it, and then when you hear it,
Yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. But I
yeah,
think looking back on when you hear the record, it's pretty exciting at that tempo.
it is. Higher voices and a little faster tempos always
Yeah.
excite, you know, which is
Yeah.
good.
Well, it worked out.
Yeah.
So what's the third song on there?
Third song is Street Fights.
That was Larry Cronin's song.
Eric Cronin. Yeah.
We're having a street fight.
Yeah.
There's some harmony in it.
Yeah. That was fun. That was a fun song. It was our little, what would it be? Side road into little drama, little storytelling.
Right. And by the way, Eddie, didn't he sing his ass off on that? Is that right? He's
Yeah.
screaming on that.
Yeah. Again, reminiscent of Robert Plant.
Oh yeah, he could scream, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
So okay, that was Street Fight. What's next?
And then She Caught the Katy.
Oh, that's my favorite. That is my favorite. Ooh, man. Now that was a Taj Mahal song.
Yeah. Yeah.
George and Eddie sang their asses off.
Yeah.
I mean, as good as anybody. I mean, like I've
Yeah.
said, it's like the Righteous Brothers on steroids or something.
Yeah.
It's really good. And George is playing a killer blues harp on it.
Yes.
It's got a great groove. That's a great record.
Yeah. That was always a good wake up for our show. You know, not that we put them to sleep, but it was just a great song.
Oh, exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that to me is classic.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next?
Yeah. I Need a Woman.
I teased George about that when I interviewed him. You know, he's talking about I need a woman. He's like, I said, George, you must have been really horny at that time. And during the song, he's making noises like, you know, like somebody's having a sex act in the background.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, we were young and horny at the time, let's face it.
That's young people, man.
That's right.
Young
Hormone.
guys, and I think a couple of us took turns
Making noises.
trying to make the sounds. Yeah, making the
Oh
sounds.
my God, I'd like to see that session.
Yeah, and it actually, I think it's a combination of George and Steve Millspaw, our roadie.
Another roadie.
Steve went in there and made some pretty convincing.
Oh,
So
interesting.
yeah, but yeah, it had it, like all the songs. They had a big power.
Oh, it was like a heavy metal song, man.
Yeah.
And Ronnie's playing his ass off on that.
And the
What
sound
is it?
and the sound effects. I think there's
Oh, yeah.
silence in there. Yeah.
There's a line in it. What does he say? Like, I need you to satisfy the masculine thing in my soul, or something like that.
Masculine beast.
Oh, the masculine beast in my soul. Woo!
Yeah, yeah. There was no beating around the bush there.
Oh, so to speak.
Yeah,
But if there, once again, see, time for a change. La Bamba, very Latin. And
yeah.
then you got Street Fight, which has some harmony in it, and then you get a bluesy.
She Caught the Katy.
She Got the Katy, and
Yeah.
then
I
this
Need a-
song, heavy metal
Yeah,
power, and you guys
Yeah.
pulled it off. I mean, it's really
yeah. And the vocals on "I Need a Woman" are really strong.
yeah, George. They were both in their peak of vocal prowess. Those guys.
Well, we had a young lady that is not. I was looking at the album, and I could have sworn she was getting credit, but she wasn't. She was also signed with Playboy. She had an album out. We went to her rap party. Cannot think of her name. I got to remember it. Who went in, and I believe she was on was it Yeah, I Need a Woman.
Was she?
I
Did she
Need a
sing?
Woman. All
She
those
sang on it.
all things in there. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
yeah. So that was kind of a boost, more for the vocals.
Was she in there making noises too with the other guys, or sound effects?
I don't think she
A
was
little
there.
female sound effects.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it was suggested. Somebody call somebody, but no, it was just us.
It was over the top enough at the time.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So what's next?
Brown Baby.
Okay, now that's a whole other style.
Yeah,
That's a song that Willie G had recorded before on Gordo Records,
yeah,
Eddie Davis's company, and then
yeah,
you guys did it.
yeah,
George sang it nice. What'd you think?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We got a lot of um, inquiries on that one. Um, um, Bill Wade from San Pedro Music wrote that, and I don't know, we didn't know anything about him. Art brought the song in, and we went, oh yeah, that's a nice song. And then of course, after working on it and building it and stuff, and we just went, wow, this is going to work. You know, we're really happy with it. So
Nice. That was it, John. You're like a leaf in summer. You're brown and beautiful. It's plain to see. That's
yeah,
really cool.
yeah. And George sang it so good.
He did sing it, but I made fun of him on that one too, because right before the solo, he goes, "Hey," and he
Yeah,
sounds like a Smurf. I said, John, George, you sound like a Smurf on that, and he laughs. Hey, good vocal.
yeah. Who knows? Maybe they sped that up too. I'm not sure.
Yeah, could be. It
Yeah.
sounded kind of high. Okay, so what's next?
So we go to side two, and that's Mi Tote.
Okay, now you're all Latin rock. You're all Santana,
We all went
total
Latin.
Latin rock.
Yeah.
And you guys, didn't you and Ronnie help write that?
Yeah, I brought it in. It actually came to me as I was driving to rehearsal, and I went in the studio and I sat down and I started playing it, and everybody just went, "What's that?" I go, "I don't know. I was just thinking this." And so Rudy got on timbales, and everybody got on their instruments, and boom, it just came out. Played it a couple more times, and George and Eddie had the vocals.
And what did the title, what it was, Mitote, was that all about?
Mitote is a celebration,
Okay.
and a gathering again for our understanding for the Yaqui tribe, and
Oh, I see.
yeah,
So it would be like the equivalent of a Chicano borlote. We're gonna have a borlote.
yeah. So it's of course, at that time with the name Yaqui and the book, reading about peyote and stuff, they threw in the line, "Mitote, mezcalito help you play, mezcalito help you pray."
Mm-hmm.
And
Psychedelics again, right?
yeah.
But that was a
And,
cool up-tempo Latin thing, man, grooving.
and we used to start the show with that song. And what would happen, especially at the Starwood, because we did the Starwood.
Starwood, talk about that.
Yeah. Um,
That was a major club back then.
it was a major club. We opened for Cheap Trick and different people, George Clinton. Um, to tell you the truth, I don't remember too much of the George Clinton, but the guys tell me that we did. I must have been on the phone or something. But
Well, Van Halen used to play there too.
yeah. But Rudy would come onto the stage by himself, and he would start lighting candles and chanting, and
Mhm.
a bunch of bells, chanting, and just lighting candles all in the front of the stage. And then we'd come out on stage and start this rumble, and he's still chanting. And the rumble would build, and then we'd stop, and Rudy would do the intro, ba 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 da ba ba da ba da ba, and we'd come in. And it always worked. It really got people's attention. Um, and the show just went from there. And we had our moments. We had some wild, get-ups and stuff to go with the showbiz.
Yeah, showmanship.
Yeah.
But see all the diversity so far, the different kinds of songs. So what's next after that one?
Stop wasting the earth.
Okay, now is the environmental thing.
Yeah.
Stop wasting the earth. And was that another Larry Cronin thing?
That was George Ochoa.
He wrote that by himself?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Stop Wasting the Earth slash Going Back to Mother Nature. Yeah, so it was like a medley, two songs.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was George's idea. I used to love to go to George's house because he'd say, listen to this. And he'd sit at the piano and just start playing. And I remember him showing me that one. And I was just like, wow, that's cool. You got to do
He's
it.
still doing that, man. He calls
Yeah,
me up once every
yeah,
month or two. Listen to this, listen to this. He's constantly still writing. And
yeah, yeah, yeah. I worked with um, Bobby Figueroa,
the drummer?
for the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
And he says that every time he'd go to Brian Wilson's house, the first thing Brian would do is say, come here, listen to this. And Brian would start playing something and he'd say, do a harmony. And he'd have to sing harmony with him. And that's how George is.
Mhm.
He just had so many ideas. And, it's a good thing he recorded a lot of his demos and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's still doing it.
He's still doing it, man. He's on fire when it comes. He's constantly playing and writing.
Yeah. But Stop Wasting the Earth, yeah. What song with a message?
Okay.
Let do something about it before it's too late.
Right.
And
So,
then going back to Mother Nature, that was Eddie taking over. And it was a boogie turned
so
into
it's kind of like a medley of two songs put together.
yeah. So yeah,
And
that
he
was
wrote both. He wrote both sides of that
both,
song.
yeah.
Both
As
sections.
far as I know, yeah. On the credits, it's George Ochoa. So,
Mhm.
and then the next one, Rich Keep Getting Rich or Richer,
That's
is
Larry Cronin.
Gary Cronin. Yeah, yeah, and great song.
Is that the one where he plays a great piano thing, man?
Yes.
There's a thing where there's a
Yeah.
incredible piano part that he does, and it's kind of a break, and he does this lick that's unbelievable.
It's a break with Ronnie, and then it goes over to there.
It's
Yeah.
almost something like Leon Russell would do or something,
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the piano on that blew my mind. I heard it like recently, like a year ago, about a year or so ago, and that part I said, "Holy shit, that is an incredible piano part." He was really good.
Yeah.
He played good Hammond organ as well.
Oh yeah. And you did a great job on that on our reunion.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about the reunion. Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah.
Uh, let's talk about that as soon as we finish
The album.
songs. So what's next after this
Yeah.
one?
And then Blue Harbor.
Blue Harbor. Now that was the kind of Crosby, Stills, Nash influenced song, very
Yeah.
much like Long Time Gone. It's been a long time coming, and it appears to be kind of that kind of vibe structure. Blue
Yeah.
Harbor, nice song, great harmony, very CSN.
Georgia song.
Yeah, so like I said, all the different, you have the influences of the Latin rock, Led Zeppelin, heavy metal, CSN. It had everything, but everything was done really well. It's like everything was equally done well and sounded great.
When we used to perform, especially before the album, we would do Helplessly Hoping and a lot of Crosby, Stills and Nash and Young
Yeah, George loved them. So did I.
and Dead in Ohio, stuff like that, where we had that harmonies going all the time. So it was easy once we went into the originals for us to just keep doing
Yeah,
it. Fun.
really good song. What's next?
And then Sunset.
Okay, so that's the album. So it's very diverse, but it's killer. I mean, what I'm proud of is those three groups we're talking about. My group, like I said, I was a solo artist with Capitol, but we wound up moving over to A&M and becoming a group and becoming Tango. But when you listen to the stuff I recorded, the stuff you guys recorded, and Tierra, they're all really, really, really good. You listen to them now, they stand up, they don't seem they're kind of timeless. They don't sound like out of date or something. But the bands were all really good. The songs are good. Those are some powerful records, and yet none of us got any promotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're like a little bit underground, but they're great and they're still there. And
Yeah.
they're there and they will always be there. So the evidence is there, what we did way back then when we were in our early 20s.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep. And I remember going to Tower Records and looking for Yaqui, and it was like it almost seemed like they didn't know where to put it. You know, sometimes you'd find it in Y or you'd find it in Latin music. Um, they just didn't know. It was almost like old time religion. They just didn't know how to sell it.
Same thing happened to us with tango. Can you imagine? Our album just said the word tango on it. So people would think it's an Argentinian tango album.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, huge mistake.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Out there, young musicians, consider your names.
Yeah, and the cover,
Yeah, and
huge.
cover. Yeah,
But I'm telling you, that theater record, that first theater record is so powerful.
yeah.
Great musicians, great songs.
Oh,
Same
yeah.
with Yaqui, and so we did some good work, and
Yeah.
it's the evidence is there.
Did I mention to you I was in kindergarten and first grade with Steve Salas?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah, Macon Heights.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I have a picture. I wasn't sure I should show it or not because back then, I don't know. Anyway, Steve and I are actually standing next to each other.
Wow. It's
Yeah, yeah.
unbelievable.
So we went way back. Every time we'd see each other, we'd catch up.
And Steve, the great lead singer for Tierra, and
Yeah,
who passed away
yeah.
years ago. But it was a great scene, man, and we did some good stuff. Now, one thing that happened was when we were all with Brown Bag Productions, Tierra got to go on PBS on a show called Acción Chicano,
Yes.
and so did you guys.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was supposed to go on. My name was in TV Guide. I still have it, but Art and I had a falling out, creative and various business falling out, and so I was not. I was removed from the show. I mean, I just wasn't on it. Yeah.
I
So
didn't know that.
yeah, I was supposed to be on that show too. So
Yeah.
that's showbiz too, right?
Yeah, that's what it is.
But Art and I are, we're fine. We're cool. But
Yeah.
that's what happened back then. Now let's talk about the reunion. So this Yaqui album is this great album that didn't get any promotion, but people still remember. A lot of people know about it and remember.
Mhm.
Again, but Time for a Change did survive quite a bit. But so people would always ask me because of my website and stuff, well, where's that Yaqui album? Where can you get the Yaqui album? It wasn't available. So I called up Art Brambilla and I said, hey man, a lot of people ask for that, you should put it out again. And by then Art had acquired the masters. He owned the masters and he had the masters. So I said, man, you should put it out, even if you print up, a few hundred copies, whatever, that thing should be out.
Yeah.
And so it worked. He went ahead and he manufactured a certain number of CDs. I forgot how many.
Mhm.
And so because of that, the CD exists to this day. I mean, there are a certain number out there. I have a few myself still.
Yeah.
But then Art, promotion man that he is, decided to do a celebration, what'd you call it? CD release party show. And it was at the Hop in Puente Hills.
Yeah.
And so I was pleased that you guys asked me to perform with you guys. And because by then Eddie Serrano had passed away, unfortunately.
Mhm.
And so I was hired to do Eddie's parts on the Yaqui stuff. And while I was there, you guys played some of my stuff. We did my song On the Boulevard, we did I'm Brown, and we did my dad's Chuco Suaves. So that was our set. We did those songs plus some Yaqui songs like Time for a Change, Blue Harbor. I forgot which other ones we did. Do you remember? But we did.
Getting rich.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did a really good set, man, and it was great. And it's on video. Everybody out there, go to YouTube, put in Yaqui at the Hop, 2005, I believe.
Mhm.
You'll see all that stuff up there. It really, really kicked ass. Thanks to my friend and drummer Ernie Hernandez, he videotaped the whole thing from the side of the
Yeah.
stage.
Yes.
So because of that, it's up on YouTube.
Excellent.
It was really a good concert.
Yeah.
We had Rudy Revelado still in
Yes.
Susan Gonzalez. We had Ray Rodriguez. We had
Mhm.
Larry Cronin was still around at the time.
Yeah.
Ronnie Reyes, you, me, George Ochoa, and then Willie Loya. My friend Willie Loya played congas,
Okay, so,
and it was a hell of a show, man.
good show. Good show.
And my big memory was singing "She Caught the Katy." I got to do Eddie's part on that, which is a screamer.
Yeah.
And I remember Rudy Salas, the leader of theater, was there, and he said, "Mark, I've never heard you sing like that before," because I was screaming. You
Yeah.
know, it was cool, man. And me and George harmonizing, that was a highlight for me. That was really cool.
And you sounded just like the record.
Oh, thank you.
Really did. I mean, I was like, wow, man, it's like he's up here. You know, really something.
Thank
Give
you.
me chills. Give me chills now.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a great night way back in 2005.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's pretty much the Yaqui story. Oh, wait a minute. So then after that happened, you guys went up and opened for Linda Ronstadt. You went up to Canada.
Mhm.
Jimmy Seville kind of joined the band at some point. Talk about all that period.
Larry left the band, and um, Jimmy Seville had been playing at the King's Table, where Old Time Religion started playing way back in the day. It was in Pico Rivera on Rosemead, and a group called Baby Brother, that everybody knows, everybody in that group, played there before we did, Old Time Religion. And Baby Brother had Willie Mondragon and Shane Salcedo singing, and T on bass, and I can't remember his name, but his nickname was Skillet on guitar. But at this time, the keyboardist was Jimmy Seville. So I can't remember who mentioned him, but we went down and listened to him and said, yeah, he'll fit. He's good. And so Baby Brother left the stage. They finished their gig, and Jimmy stayed there, set up. And Yaqui, Old Time Religion, came in and set up there. That was a Yaqui.
It was Yaqui. It
Yeah,
was Yaqui.
yeah. We went in and set up and played. So Jimmy stayed in the band from there, and we were rehearsing with George and Eddie and the group, and playing different places. And one night, Frank Garcia, Cannibal, shows up with Eddie, and it's like, oh, we're gonna do a couple of songs with him, or see if he works out. I forgot what it was they said. And then Frank said, hey, if you guys want, I have a Pacific Northwest tour that could go into Canada if you guys are interested. And we're just like, okay, give us a minute to think about it. And okay, we'll do it. So from there, we went up. We started in Bakersfield, played at the Californian, I believe, and went up to Portland, Oregon, and played at the Keyhole. It's called the Keyhole Lounge then at that time, but huge place, big place. And then we drove from Portland after the gig. We drove to Vancouver Island and went to Courtenay, the Mexicana Hotel. And as we were driving into the parking lot of the hotel, they had put up a banner in front of the entrance of the hotel. And there were people standing around waiting for us. And the sign said, welcome, Cannonball and the Headhunters.
Cannonball.
Big fans. But yeah, we had a blast up there with Jimmy Seville. And we worked in, and George, and the night with Can't Get Enough of Your Love by Badfinger, I believe. George singing.
By Bad Company.
Bad Company, yeah. And the went over really, really big. The Native American Canadian Indians really liked us, and our last day there, they had a big feast for the band. They had dug up clams for clam chowders and smoked salmons and stuff, and made it almost impossible to play that night. But it was our last night. But yeah, Jimmy was in the band, long story short. We were there, then we had a week off, and somebody gave us a penthouse to stay in, which was kind of cool, in Vancouver, overlooking the park. And we opened at Oil Can Harry's. It was Yaqui and backing up Cannibal and the Headhunters. And Cheech and Chong were playing in the comedy room above where we were playing. And so we took every opportunity to go up there and hang out with them. You know, they're just great guys, funny guys.
So on this tour, Cannibal and the Headhunters were Frankie Cannibal, Garcia, George Ochoa, and Eddie Serrano, right?
Surround, yeah, yeah. And we did that. I forgot how, we were probably gone 2 or 3 months, I think. Something like that, maybe 3 months. And then we came back to LA to recover.
Mm-hmm.
We had new management at that time. We had Jerry Fox, and we cannot remember the name of his partner, but he got us opening for Linda Ronstadt in Spokane at East Washington State College. It's down the street from Gonzaga U. People are wondering if that really exists. It does. But it was a great show, a great trip. It was snowing, and we stayed at the dorms for a week. Then we played at Joe's A&J for a week, and they liked us, so they held us over another week. But that's when the school discovered we were still there. So the club found accommodations for the band, and we just tore it up every night.
Did you back up Linda Ronstadt only once, or did you back up?
Oh, it was just once with Linda. Just
did you rehearse with her, or did you guys just wing it?
Oh no, we didn't back her up. She had her own.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You were on the bill with her.
Yeah, we opened for her. Yeah.
We opened for her.
And the difference at that show was she performed sitting down because her foot was in a cast. She had broken her foot.
Mm-hmm.
She said that she had come into town and she was expecting to stay at a certain hotel that she liked, and they did not make the booking for her. So they had to go somewhere else. And she was upset when she entered her room, so she kicked her door.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So she had to perform the whole show, but wow, what a voice.
Okay.
What a voice. Yeah. We had gone up to Spokane, Washington to open for Linda Ronstadt. And at the show was a owner of a rock club in Spokane, and he asked if we would do a week there. And so we went, yeah, that'll be cool, but we're just going to stay living at the college dorm where we did the concert until they throw us out, which they did after a week. But during that week, Joe had this, the dressing room and kitchen were downstairs, and the stairs came up right in the middle of the room, facing the stage. And a couple of nights we came up the stairs singing "I'll Fly Away," one glad morning when this life is over, carrying Ray Rodriguez like a corpse up the stairs, through the audience, and onto the stage. And that was our entrance. We were out of it by then.
Ray Rodriguez, the drummer, right?
Drummer, yeah.
Where was it when you ran into Little Ray?
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. So
that was again. We went up to Canada. That was the last of that trip, and we were staying at the Mexicana Inn, and they had a big showroom. And I think we played a week, and then took a day off or two, and then played again. And so Sparks, Steve Millspaw, and I went to the laundromat in town, and we're sitting there. We're waiting for our clothes to dry. And there's a club across the street, and I look out the window and I see this green van pull up, and I go, wow, that sure looks like Little Ray's van. And I'm just watching, and this guy that looks just like Ray gets out of the van. And then other guys that I know from East LA are getting out, musicians, and they're unloading their equipment to go in and play. So it was like, wow, what a strange thing to run into friends in another country. You know,
Oh, what are the odds of that?
they're there to work. You know, so that was a lot of fun.
You guys hang out a little bit?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah, a lot of it. I can't remember his name. Charlie was in the band. He later became a priest. Uh,
Oh yeah, was he the one that was in the Blue Satins?
I,
Because I
maybe
know one of the guys named Charlie in the Blue Satins, I believe, became.
he oversaw Bobby Espinosa's funeral.
Mm.
Bobby at the St. Alphonsus Church in East LA.
When I was there.
Yeah, and Bobby Luna on keyboards. Can't remember who else was in the band, but good band. They were good. You know, Ray's always had good musicians.
Oh yeah, always. So
But,
anything else you want to add about Yaqui that you can think of?
well, we played at the beach house. I can't remember what city. You know, my memory's shot, but we played at the beach house, which was a very popular place at the time. And when we arrived to load the equipment in, I see this guy just kind of puttering around outside. And I look at him and I go, "Aren't you the drummer from Spirit, the rock group Spirit?" He goes, "Yeah, that's me." Yeah. Oh, wow. You know,
Bald guy?
yeah, yeah, Jack Cassidy. So we start talking. He comes in with us, and he's there for the sound check, and he sticks around for the show. And uh, we're playing, and we're really getting into it. And all of a sudden, Jack comes on stage, and the people recognize him, and they all start cheering. "All right, the drummer from Spirit!" And he gets on the congas, and he starts playing. And I noticed that there's red stuff on the congas, and I'm like, "Oh, this isn't good." His hands are bleeding. And what had happened was our roadie, Con Sparks, Steve Millspaw, he said that they were in the dressing room and Jack started pounding on the table and broke a glass and it cut his hands. But he was so into the music, he just stood up and got on stage and bled over everything. So eventually he brought Randy California, who was the leader of the group, and I believe he was the singer.
Guitar player.
Yeah. And Randy visited. And then the next time we were at the beach house, Randy and Jack and a couple of other guys did a little side project from Spirit, and they performed, you know, with us, not on stage with us, but before us, before we played. So that was a nice connection. That was
a great band, man. I love that. Nature's Way and Fresh Garbage, and they made some good records.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And another memory with Yaqui was I'd always wanted to play the Golden Bear in Huntington Beach. And we finally got booked there. And we're doing our show, and all of a sudden I smell smoke. And I look up, and our Hammond organ is on fire.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it just started burning. Yeah. We found out later you have to oil it periodically, and I'm not sure if it had been. So, yeah, that was a good memory of stopping the show, trying to put the fire out. And we continued without it. That was
What
good.
about the Buddy Miles story?
Well, Buddy Miles came after all that. I was
Was it Yaqui or was it another situation?
no, I was working with Steve Lawrence, the horn section from Evergreen Blues.
Well, that was earlier then.
No, later.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, they were working with Buddy Miles.
Wow. Oh, they were playing with Buddy Miles. That's right.
And
Horn section.
they got Buddy to come down to a club we were playing at in Newport Beach. I was with that band. It was called Madison Avenue Jones. And not too many people know Madison Avenue Jones was a character in a National Lampoon magazine, article on high school stuff. But anyway, they actually got Buddy to come down and jam one night. And Buddy came in and he picked up a guitar and he did this tribute to Hendrix, and he played good guitar. And so I was just having a blast doing Hendrix songs. then he gets on the drums and played Them Changes and a couple of other
Big
songs.
hit, yeah.
I was,
Electric Flag.
as a bass player, I was in heaven, you know.
Oh yeah, those guys, the horn section, Tom Bray, Ken Walther, and Steve Lawrence were playing with
Yes.
Electric Flag, which was
Yeah.
Buddy Miles' group.
Yeah, yeah. And Buddy liked it, so he came down the next night and the next night and the next night. So he was there about 5 nights,
Nice.
just coming down every night and jamming with us. And it was supposed to be kept under wraps, that he was maybe going to come down and jam. But the club owner got excited and started announcing it on the radio. So it was one night only, Buddy Miles, and of course that caused a stir with his management.
Hey, this is kind of funny because now I can tie it to this thing. Years later, when the Elijah Horn section was playing with Neil Young, and Rick Rosas, my old bass player, was playing with him too. Somebody was playing a club in Montebello, somebody, maybe the horn section, and they got Neil Young to come down. So Neil Young came down to East LA to Montebello, and the whole band, that was the band that did that This Note's for You, Neil Young and the Blue Notes, came down and played in this little restaurant in Montebello.
Yeah.
And they were just set up in the corner, 10-piece band with Neil Young, and the word spread, the place got all packed, and they played the album in that place. So Steve Lawrence has a history of bringing the big stars into the little venues.
Yeah, yeah, he did. Yeah. Steve had worked with Delaney Bramlett.
Hank Barter, the guitar player, played with Delaney, and he played with a lot of people after that. He played with Hoyt Axton.
Yeah, yeah.
East LA, baby. A lot of people did a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what impressed me. Later on, after Yaqui, I worked with different people, and I did a lot of work with Ray Jimenez, and we'll get to that stuff later. But I did some gigs with Ruben Guevara.
Okay.
And Ron Reyes was working with him, and Ron invited me to a rehearsal. They were preparing to play for a Cheech and Chong movie rap party, and the rehearsal was at Paramount Studios or somewhere. And I had never met Ruben, but when he walked in, he's one of those guys that just kind of freezes the room as far as his energy and his professionalism.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really impressed. And I remember looking at him going, yeah, that's what East LA is about. East LA, people need to know that there's professionals in East LA that are playing in East LA, but they also get out and do the world, you know.
Yeah. You know, one of the things I'm proud of is that, you know, a lot of the groups in the 60s, like the Byrds, their first album, and on Mr. Tambourine Man, it was the Wrecking Crew playing. They weren't playing their instruments. They were, you know, Roger McGuinn was, and they were singing, but they had the Wrecking Crew doing the tracks. The Association had the Wrecking Crew. So many of those groups, the Monkees, you know, they weren't playing on their own records, but we were all playing our own records all along, you know.
Yeah.
From the early 60s on, you know, and we did a really great job, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. We had our what Gilbert Stokes would call big brothers, you know, the guys Max and the guys from the Romancers and stuff. These guys were experienced already. And
The older guys.
yeah. Some of the guys from the Blendells doing the Cannibal and Headhunter stuff.
Right.
We learned from them. We worked with them, and so of course you pick up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we all played our own stuff.
So when you played with Ruben Guevara, is that when it was called Consafos?
Consafos, yeah.
And Ronnie Reyes. I think I went to one show at some hotel downtown when you guys played.
Yeah. We played under the Basement Club in. You mentioned the hotel.
Was it the Biltmore?
Biltmore, yeah. That's David Torres was on keyboards, and Ron and myself. Yeah, that was a good show. And then I had worked. Okay, Ray's bass player for the Little Ray Review, Little Ray and the Progressions, was a guy named Mike Rodriguez, better known as Bozo. Bozo and I, when I had switched from Catholic school to public school, uh, my homeroom, my first day, I sat next to Bozo. That's where I first met him, seventh grade.
He was
And
already called Bozo back then?
yeah, yeah. And and a great bass player. He always was a good
I
bass player.
remember.
But anyway, he called me in the 60s and said, guitar player can't make it tonight. Can you do the gig? And I went, well, I don't know any of Ray's stuff, but I'll try it. I showed up. Ray traveled in style. The band traveled in a hearse, and the equipment went in a truck. And we played 3 high schools in one night. And he would have the Raelettes come out, the girl singers, and then the Epics.
Epics and the Four Clefs.
The Four
The whole
Clef,
review he had going.
yeah,
So that was we're talking mid-60s now.
yeah, mid-60s. And it was the only time in the 60s I worked with Ray. And I had a blast. But in the 70s, Ron and Jimmy and Ray and myself were writing songs, and we needed a singer. So one of us called Ray and said, hey, would you be interested in singing some songs to record? And he said, as a matter of fact, I'm looking for a band to do some gigs and record my stuff. So we teamed up and started recording our songs and also doing gigs. And we wound up going to Bakersfield as a one night a week thing. It turned into 2 nights, 3 nights. And we wound up living there in Bakersfield for a while and playing, with Ray, some pretty big things. We had lines every night of people trying to get into it.
He's a great singer and performer, man.
Yeah. The singer of the Box Tops came in and he jammed with us. He sang.
Alex something, I forgot his name.
Yeah.
Alex Chilton, I think is his name.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Now then, you're currently playing with Little Ray still, right? Sometimes
yeah, I just started again. Yeah. So in the
throughout the
70s,
decades.
yeah, we were called Dazzle in Bakersfield, and then he left and to pursue other things in his band and another group, and we kept the horn section and became Magic, and we had Magic playing all the clubs in East LA for quite a while. We had different people in the group. Tino Melendres sang, Eddie Serrano sang.
Mhm. Yeah, Tino wound up in Tierra for a while.
Yeah. Robert Zapata played drums. Ray Rodriguez was a drummer.
Right. Now, speaking of Zapata, we got to get into the whole Cannibal gigs you did with Zapata, and
Yeah.
that was starting sometime in the mid-70s or something like that, somewhere in there, after Yaqui.
Yeah.
So you guys started touring with Frankie Cannibal Garcia, and was that at first with George and Eddie?
Yes. After Yaqui broke up, I went working with other groups, and Yaqui reformed with Rick Rosas on bass. And that's when Frankie came into the picture. I don't know how that happened. It was something that either Eddie reached out or Frankie did. And that's when that whole Cannibal and the Headhunter show started. And Robert Zapata was the drummer, because Jimmy Seville and Ray Rodriguez, after Yaqui broke up, went back to Canada to work with a Canadian group. So Robert Zapata was on drums. And they did the Frankie thing. And then Frank decided he didn't want to do that anymore. He was getting into the medical field.
Right.
So Eddie asked, well, is it okay if I keep working as Cannibal and the Headhunters? And Frank said yes and gave him permission.
Yeah, Frankie gave his blessings that Eddie can continue as Cannibal.
That's right.
And that went on. But so that was a whole period. But you and Ronnie played with Zapata and Frankie, and then later with Serrano as Cannibal for many years, wasn't it? Many years?
Yeah, many years.
And so talk about those tours, like who were some of the players you backed up? I know there was like Mickey Dolenz and all kinds of R&B artists.
A whole bunch. Again, I had gone out of the picture. I was doing other things, and Ron and Robert Zapata and Hank Dandini. The bass player was a guy named Dennis Noda, very talented bass player, um, and Robert Zapata on drums. And they were involved with a show called 50 Years of Rock and Roll, and they backed up so many people. I mean, the singer from Toto.
Right. I have a list here. This will make it simpler
Yeah.
from our interview years ago. So you guys backed up Mickey Dolenz, Bobby Kimball of Toto, lead singer, Mitch Ryder of the Detroit Wheels, the Coasters, the Drifters.
The Platters.
Yeah, and then it looks here, Brenda Holloway, Roy Head, Al Wilson, Pat Upton, Spencer Davis.
Yeah.
So you guys are backing up
Everybody.
for years, right? That was quite a good gig for you guys.
Yeah, and towards the end of it, we were backing up Joey
Holland?
Holland from Bad Company and
No, Badfinger.
Bad Finger. Sorry, and,
I see.
Denny Lane,
Yeah.
the Moody Blues and
Yeah.
Wings.
So you guys like played in a lot of different cities, toured a lot,
Yeah,
picking up all those people and doing a Cannibal show.
just and I wasn't part of the group when they did this show. It was one of the ones that before I got back in, but they had played. They told me it was in the Ozarks, and they were. What happened is they go out and do all these book shows, and if they had space, they would book other things while they were there, and they booked them in this field in the middle of wilderness, and there was a stage, and they were just like, "Are you kidding me? There's nobody here. Just start playing. Don't worry about it." They started playing, and they said people started coming out of the woods like a movie until it was packed with people.
Play and they will come.
Yeah.
Field of Dreams.
Yeah. But they did a lot of interesting gigs. When I got back in the band, I had went. Dennis Noda was still the bass player, but I subbed for him. We did a gig in Shreveport, Louisiana, backing up Mickey Dolenz at the Hirsch Coliseum. It was a Crack Baby benefit concert, and the headliner was Jerry Lee Lewis.
Wow.
And we did Mickey Dolenz and Little Anthony and Tiny Tim.
And you guys were backing up everybody, right?
No, we just
just some of them?
Just Mickey.
Oh, just Mickey.
Yeah.
Now, on the other tours, did you back up everybody or just
backed up everybody?
Usually backed up everybody, but not on this show.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Mitch Ryder and Spencer Davis, we did their shows. Pat Upton, Al Wilson, everybody. Platters, Drifters, Coasters, the Tokens, the Shirelles, just all kinds of people. Marilee Rush, I think you mentioned, she was just call me Angel of the Morning, Marilee Rush.
Yeah.
Dodie Stevens, Tan Shoes and Pink Shoelaces. Paul and Paula, Hey Paula, I Want to Marry You. All the songs I heard on the radio when I was a kid, we're working with them and backing them up. Yeah.
You guys went all over the country, right?
All over the country. Yeah.
For many years. How many years would you say you played with them?
Well, again, I came in later, so I was with them probably 5-6 years doing it, and they had been doing it longer than I had.
But was Ronnie in it from the beginning? Or?
Ron was in pretty much from the beginning.
Yeah. Well, when you and Ronnie left in around 2010, I played with them for a while. It was me
I
and
was just going to mention that.
yeah, and the bass player Louis Ruiz,
Yes.
great bass player.
Yeah.
Kind of took years in Ronnie's parts.
With Redbone.
Places. Pardon me?
With Pat Vegas and Redbone.
Well, that was a whole other thing. So anyway, over about a period of a year, I did maybe 9 or 10 gigs with them, and the highlight was several highlights. One was we played in Pittsburgh for one of those PBS specials, and They flew us to Pittsburgh and stayed in this nice Hilton hotel, and they took us down to the gig in a limo, and there was like 3 nights of people playing, and there was like 50 artists there. So the first night we just went and watched, and we got to see Paul Revere and the Raiders, and Davy Jones of the Monkees, and so many people were there. Chad and Jeremy,
Wow.
English artists, R&B artists. It was really cool to hang around with all these people.
Yeah.
And we played second night. We followed Question Mark and the Mysterians.
Yeah.
And it was televised, and it came out on a 7 DVD set called Pop Rock and Roll of the 60s or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And Peter Noon of Herman's Hermits was there as emceeing and stuff. So that was a real fun experience. And we just went on and did Land of a Thousand Dances.
Yeah.
And then we did this little short tour called Retro Rock, where we backed up Joey Mullen of Badfinger, Denny Lane of Wings and Moody Blues, Dennis Stefano of the Buckinghams, and Sonny Geraci of the Outsiders. So it was really fun because we got to do our show, and then we backed up all those artists. So I had to play guitar, all the leads on all the songs, and do some harmonies. And it was a great band, with Carl Carrasco on keyboard, and
Dave Goldstein.
Dave Goldstein on keyboard, and Zapata on drums, and Louis Reese on bass, and what's the singer? Charlie from the Ambertones. What's his name?
Munoz.
Charlie Munoz was doing the Cannibal part and at that time, and it was a really, really good band, and had a good time on those shows. We did a few other things here and there. But then, because I think at that time, the Cannibal and Headhunters band and Redbone, Pat Vegas had the same manager. They combined us, so we kind of backed him up as Redbone and did a couple of shows in El Paso and one in Sacramento. The one in Sacramento, Ron Reyes was there. Ronnie and I both played.
Yeah.
We shared the leads. But then in El Paso, I was the only guitar player, so I got to play on all those Redbone tunes, which I love. So so I had that year there playing with Zapata and the Headhunters band, which was a good experience. And,
I love that Redbone thing because I always admired them. They're just their arrangements and stuff.
oh God, they were great songs, great players.
But with Redbone or with Pat, we played at the Native American Music Awards in Niagara Falls.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And we were there, and we backed up Janice Marie Johnson, I believe. I might be wrong with that. She wrote and sang Boogie Oogie Oogie.
Oh yeah. What were they called? Something Honey. Taste of Honey.
Yeah. And so we did that, and that was a lot of fun. And when we did Come and Get Your Love, the audience just jumped up and started dancing, and
what a great hit that was.
Everybody was dancing and bouncing around. And but who else was there? The guitar player from Leonard Skinner, the blonde guy.
Oh, King.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
he's the guy that came with a don't da. He came up with that lick for Sweet Home.
Yeah,
something King. I've been seeing a lot of video on him. He was the only guy in Leonard Skinner that wasn't a Southerner. He had been in the Strawberry Alarm Clock before that in California.
Oh yeah. Yes. That they played at the Big Union. Strawberry Alarm.
Really?
Clock. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. He came up to me, as a matter of fact, and I guess they told him he could use any amp he wanted, and he came up and said, "Yeah, I'll take that one." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" They didn't tell the band, but you're like, "Oh, okay." But he was there, and the Indian chief from the Village People.
Oh, really?
Native American, so he was there, and just a lot of different people that performed, and it was fun. I remember doing a gig, one of those shows at St. George, Utah, and we were backing up the Platters, Coasters, Drifters, the Rivingtons, and I could tell the audience wasn't too clear on who the Rivingtons were, and we did, they did their shows, their song, and then when the singer came up to the mic and went bop, 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 ooh, ma, 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 and the place went crazy.
The Rivingtons.
Yeah, the Rivingtons. Yeah. Excuse me. And I must be getting tired. The A Thousand Nights,
1,000 Stars.
A Thousand Stars. I
I'm
can't.
tired, and we are a little on the old side too. Sometimes we forget stuff.
Yeah. But at the end of the show, she asked me, she goes, "How do you guys remember all those songs?"
Yeah.
It was a challenge.
Kathy Young was 1,000.
Kathy, yes, thank you.
We should probably also tell the viewers that we had some trouble getting the audio going on this, and it took hours to.
3
I
hours.
mean, we were supposed to start at 1 o'clock, and we didn't start till 4 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah.
So we were kind of fried when the interview started.
Yeah.
It's kind of a miracle we've gone this long, but
The stamina there.
yeah, it's a mental stamina.
Yeah.
But but we're almost done here. But so that was an interesting experience you guys had. You guys played with a lot of people, toured around a lot, and you played for a few gigs with Little Willie G at some point.
Yeah, I periodically, Tony Banda, excellent bassist, was Pancho Sanchez's bassist.
Right.
That's from
He
the
and his
beginning.
They're
Yeah.
both
And
Banda brothers.
and he was working with other bands, and he called me, and I would, when he needed a sub, and I would fill in for him. And one of the gigs, or some of the gigs that were with Willie G. And I had been working off and on 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s with Ray Jimenez, Little Ray. So I kept thinking, well, I've worked with Frankie and I've worked with Little Ray. I just need Little Willie G. And they had the opportunity. Yeah. So I can't remember the name of his group, but he's, it's Little Willie G. And he's got some great songs, Latin jazz. And we played some outdoor things, one of them in Watts Park, which was a lot of fun. And it was fun. It was fun doing stuff with him and doing his stuff. And his some of the Midnighters, Larry Rendon from the Midnighters was in that. Bob Robles.
Great guitar player.
So, and when I was a kid, I would go to hear the Midnighters. I would walk to St. Alphonsus Church and go to the stage, stand backstage. And back then, Benny was still the bass player.
Benny Lopez.
Yeah, and Robert was the drummer.
No, it was George Salazar.
George,
and then Danny Lamont.
Yeah, George. It was George.
George Salazar. He passed away.
And Roy Marcus was in the band. And
Roy Marcus was a guitar player. They called him Ringo because he looked like Ringo.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I remember still to this day, I remember before they started playing, Roy came in and he was showing the guys a ring that somebody gave him, because girls would give him rings because he looked like Ringo.
Right.
And he was going, "Look at the ring she gave me. Look at this girl. She just gave me this ring." And he was putting it on, and he was very blown away about it. But he was a nice guy.
We were at Garfield High School together, and the senior play, we did a senior play. It was Batman. The show Batman was really popular, so we did a Batman takeoff.
Yeah.
And Roy Marcus and I were in the band in the orchestra pit.
Oh,
and it was the school band, but they wanted 2 electric guitars in it. So we do that, and we got our little moment in the sun. Roy and I got to do a duet up on stage, and we did Ringo's "They're Gonna Put Me in the Movies."
Yeah.
And I did and he sang lead and I did the lead, and so we did that little duet of "Act Naturally." So that's a cool memory. 1967.
1967. I'd also go to hear him at Johnson's Market on Whittier Boulevard.
You mean on the back of the truck?
The Midnighters, yeah.
We played that day too.
Did you play? Yeah.
We were there, the Ambertones, a lot of bands.
That was me sitting on the wall behind the stage. I would just sit there
Oh,
and
yeah?
watch the musicians, and yeah, I just enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Go by myself, listen to groups.
yeah. It's a big lineup. We got the Counts were there, I believe. Might be on the Mark and the Escorts.
Wow.
Little Ray. Yeah, Little Ray did it too.
But with Willie, so I enjoyed it. I did some fun stuff with him.
So you got to play with Little Ray, Little Willie G, Cannibal.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, you've had a hell of a history. I mean, that's a lot of groups you played with, a lot of great artists out of East LA and beyond, and it's quite a career there.
Still at it. I worked with Gilbert Stokes off and on for years.
Really good singer.
Yeah.
Got a really high tenor voice.
He sang El Chicano did
Oh yeah, he did Groovin'.
Groovin'.
Yeah,
Yes. He did it.
El Chicano of the '90s did a version of Groovin' that he sang lead on. Yeah, he was in the band there for a while with Bobby Espinoza.
Yeah. One of the groups I was with, it was called Josiah Blue.
I remember that.
And original stuff. We played a lot of interesting places, parks and stuff. But the biggie was we played a party it was for Atlantic Records, and it was a album rap party for a group called Pretty Things.
Oh, I remember them.
Yeah, and it was at Jane Mansfield's mansion.
Ooh,
Yeah.
was she there?
No, shit. Well, in spirit, maybe. I don't know.
Had she passed already?
Yeah, well, yeah, this was a long time after. This was actually after Yaqui. But we played, and there were just so many people there. I mean, we were playing, and Rod Stewart and Brett Eklund walked in front of the stage, just passing by to go find a spot. But that was fun. That was a fun thing.
Was Ronnie in that group?
Yeah, Ron was the group. Robert Sabata on drums, and lead singer was Joe Carroll, and he wrote the tunes. And when we were setting up for this gig, SIR instrument rental came in and set up an electric piano, and we said, we don't have a piano player, and we said, oh, that's in case Elton wants to jam. And we're like, oh yeah, okay, sure. And then we found out later that Elton did show up, but he didn't stay. But it was like, wow, that's
But you guys never recorded as a group at Josiah Blue?
I don't remember. I don't remember if we did. We might have. It's possible. I don't know. But after that is when I got in with Steve Lawrence and the guys in Newport Beach. Right now I'm in a rock group called Pilot the Moon. Some guys from Anaheim. Good musicians, rockers. And we've done a CD and performed. We've been working basically once a month at Bolsa Chica Beach. So we've got 2 more to go, and that'll be it for the year. So other than that, I can't think of anything
You
else.
still play with Little Ray occasionally now?
Ray, oh yeah, doing working with Ray. That's always been a blast. The 80s, the 90s, the different clubs, shows. I did the Greek Theater with Ray.
Wow.
And K Earth had
that big thing way back?
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. When was that? Was that early 80s, late 70s? I'm trying to remember. Was it early 80s maybe?
I asked Ray, and he's like, oh, that was a long time ago. I don't remember.
Yeah, but they had a big East LA thing. They had the Blendells and
Blendells, Question Mark. No, I'm not. Okay, a lot of bands, but yeah. Ray did. And we dressed up for the occasion, as Ray usually did. And in the middle of the show, Ray called Frankie out, and the place, the Greek Theater, went nuts. And Frank came out, and we did Land of a Thousand Dances.
Oh,
yeah, that was.
Was that the finale?
No, it was the middle of the show.
Oh, that would have been a perfect finale.
Yeah, it would have been, definitely. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we did. Maybe it was.
Is that the last song you did with Ray and the Ray set?
It could have been.
It's made at least a set finale. But either
Yeah.
way, what a great moment that is.
Oh yeah, it was incredible. Solis Brothers Theater was there.
Yeah. I've seen that. I have that. I think I have that flyer at a lot of East LA bands played that day. I wasn't around that time. I think I was living in Palm Springs at the time already, but I didn't go to that.
Yeah.
So,
One of those wonderful memories,
yeah, man, just look at all these memories, just incredible. That's the thing about being a musician. You have a lot of adventure, travel, the people you play with,
Oh yeah,
the experiences you have are really incredible.
it's a good way to get out in the world.
Yeah,
If you keep at it, practice, work with good people, work with older people if you can, because they'll teach you.
right.
Um, you never know where it'll take you. Take you around. Redbone's been around the world like
Oh, of course, yeah.
you
Oh,
know,
we didn't mention when we played together in 2017. So it was at a place called Ami Hacienda in Pico Rivera, gigantic venue. A
yeah,
lot of East LA kind of shows and Chicano rock shows go on to this day there.
yeah.
In 2017, I was invited to perform it was a Zoot Suit Pachuco night.
Wow.
And so I asked you guys to back me up because, you guys had known my material. Ronnie Reyes had done a lot of my shows.
Yeah,
And Ray Rodriguez, we played together before.
yeah.
So, it was Ray Rodriguez, you, Ronnie Reyes, and me, and Jimmy Seville on keyboards.
hmm
And we did a little 3-song set. We did Get Your Baby, my first record with Mark and the Escorts. We did On the Boulevard, a song from the 80s. And we did I'm Brown.
Yeah.
And it was a great show. And that's on YouTube also. You can find that. It's Mark Guerrero and Yaqui, 2017. That was a really good show. We got some good video on that. And then later that same show, I got to sing Chuco Suaves with Tierra. And I sang one of my dad's songs, Tin Marin, with Pachuco Jose y Los Diamantes. I sang with 3 groups that day. It was a really banner day. But playing those 3 songs with you guys was fantastic.
I found the photos that I took on stage. When I got on stage before we played, I took pictures of Ray and Ronnie and Jimmy. So I'll send them to you.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, and then we did some other shows. Then when we first reconnected, I'm trying to think. When you guys played with me in Tucson,
Yeah.
at Pima College.
Yeah.
And I think I know how this happened. I think Zapata called me up one day and we were just talking and we were saying, hey, we should do something together sometime. And we wound up having a rehearsal at Little Ray's studio. And then this gig came up for me in Tucson. So I said, hey, you guys want to back me on it? And we did. We did a nice whole set of stuff, of my stuff. And then we did the Mr. Duran show.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we did a bunch of songs. And that stuff's on YouTube as well. Mr. Duran show, Mark Guerrero, and you'll see that. And once again, it was Carl Carrasco on keyboard, Ronnie Reyes guitar, me, you on bass, and Zapata on drums. I'm trying to remember, that must have been Cannibal the Headhunters band backing me up at that time.
Except the sax player, Alanese.
Oh, then I brought a sax player in.
Yeah.
Steve Alanese, great sax player.
I worked with him in Ray's band.
Oh yeah? Oh, he's the best. He's my first call sax player. I've done a lot of stuff using him on recording. He just played on my new EP as well.
Oh wow.
He's really great. Yeah, so that was a really cool show on the Mr. Duran show. So then, so I'm just saying that all these things kind of pieced together. That was the first time we played together. And then later I played with the Headhunters band and then you guys later backed me up. So there's this whole cross-pollination of these musicians, It's cool.
3 years. We're fortunate to have been born in the 50s.
Yes.
We heard the big changes from.
We've lived the whole rock and roll history,
Yeah. Elvis and the Everly Brothers, and then the Beatles and everything that followed.
British Invasion, the psychedelic thing, we all
Yeah.
do the whole thing.
Motown, when it was really happening. Bob Farrell was Ray's keyboardist for many years, and he's still, I think he's retired, but he may not be. I doubt if he's retired.
Mhm.
Um, he became the musical director for the Temptations, and he was director for a few years, many years, I guess. And there was one gig in Palm Springs Palm Desert, that the guitarist and bass player couldn't make it. I don't know about, oh, the guitar player lived on the East Coast, and the bass player had just gotten married and he was on his honeymoon. So he asked if I'd want to fill in and play with the Temptations. And I was like, yeah. So he gave me tapes and stuff to listen to the show, and a big leather bound when I did the gig, they had a leather bound sheet music book,
Mm.
Temptations, so like the
Yes.
book of Temptations, and it was incredible. It was incredible. We practicing the songs and then doing the show, and we learned the overture, so we're playing the overture, and then the Temps come out, and Melvin and Otis, the leader of the group, turned around and looked at Maurice and us and myself, because they knew we were subbing, and smiled. And that's when it hit me. Wow, it's the Temptations. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, well, this is the crowning thing of my career,
Wow.
So,
That's another thing about being a musician. There are moments, there are moments like when I got to sit in with Eric Burden on a show, and or playing with Joey Molland, and after the show he gave me a hug and said first rate mate, and
yeah,
Denny Lane, playing with Denny Lane with the
yeah,
Headhunters band, and
no,
Denny Lane, he liked my solo I did on we did a bluesy version of You Send Me, and he said, hey, great solo. So when we were backing him up, he kept giving me solos, and we are sharing
okay.
some solos. So those are nice. And I remember being a kid and having his record when he was in the Moody Blues, Go Now, Go Now, Go Now. I love that record. He did the vocal on that. And so now I'm backing him up on Go Now. These moments when you go, oh, this is cool. People that when you're a kid, you're listening to, now you're playing with.
Yeah, yeah. You kind of like, am I really here? Am I really doing this?
There's lots of cool moments, like that are little nuggets,
Yeah,
to collect that your money can't buy,
yeah, exactly. And when you tell people, half the time they don't believe you. They're just like,
I
yeah,
got
sure.
pictures. I got pictures and video.
Yeah. Well, one memory that popped in my head is backing up the Archies at
Oh, Sugar
big,
Sugar.
the
Ron
big,
Dante.
yeah, Ron Dante. And I thought, wow, what are we going to sound like doing Sugar Sugar? And at first rehearsal, the band sounded perfect. And I was just like, wow, yeah, this band can play anything. And it was,
Well,
it
in my
was,
band, The Men from Sound, in 1966, we got to back up Dobie Gray when he had the hit song, The In Crowd.
yeah,
And we were just kids, like, 16 years old. And he came to our rehearsal, and he said,
yeah,
hey, and we rehearsed with him. We did the show, and he did it. He must have liked us.
yeah.
So
Wow.
those are the really cool moments,
You don't hear that too often. The star comes to your house to rehearse.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
kids. He was a grown man with a hit record, and we're
yeah,
these little 16-year-olds in a band. And
yeah,
he comes and he let us back him up.
yeah.
It's
That's
okay.
cool. Yeah, I'll tell
So
you, happy years.
yeah,
Good.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we were very fortunate to have been born when we were, but also the East LA scene. The fact that we were at that time and place,
Yes.
all these musicians and all these bands and all these teenage venues happened, and this music boom happened, and record companies were within reach. Hollywood, we had
Mhm.
Eddie Davis's record companies, we had Eddie Torres's record company, we had Bob Keene's record companies, where a lot of Little Ray, Ronnie the Casuals, the sisters all recorded for Delphi and those groups, those labels, Donna.
Mhm.
So you know and we had Billy Cardenas and then Art Brambilla. So a lot
Yeah.
of people had opportunities to record. I'm sure there's a lot of musicians in other parts of the country where they weren't so close to Hollywood or so close to so many studios, but
Yeah.
also the fact that this scene was happening with all these venues and musicians. And at a time when rock and roll was still young, let's think about it. If you think rock and roll as we know it really started rolling in 55, 56, and we were all starting in the early 60s. So rock was only 7 years old, as we know it.
Yeah.
And nowadays, people that play, they've got like 70 years of rock to look back on. We were right there as it was happening,
It's happening. Yes. Yes. The Great Western used to have big shows.
We did one show there.
I had heard that Sonny and Cher were there and the Beach Boys, and
That's the other thing, that a lot of these mainstream artists would come to East LA. Them played at the Big Union with for Van Morrison. I saw the Turtles at the Montebello Ballroom. Roy Head. We were on the bill with Roy Head. I saw Billy Preston at St. Alphonsus.
That's something.
Yeah. So it was really cool.
Yeah. Strangebury would play at Almani Legion Stadium with the Standells.
Dirty Water. I never
Yeah.
played at Almani Legion Stadium. I never even went there. And they tore it down sometime in the late 60s or something.
Yeah. I remember.
Oh, so yes, that must have been like 68 or something. This is Strange Group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Memories.
Yeah. Jimmy King had a party at his house, and Strangebury was invited, and the Ventures were there.
Wow.
Got a chance to meet the Ventures, and that's how one of the ways I learned how to play guitar was playing along with their records.
Yeah. Most of us started with surf music, because, the surf boom of the early 60s with Dick Dale and Wipeout and the Ventures. And, when we started out, we just did surf music at first, instrumentals. And so many East LA bands started with surf, at least partly.
Yeah. Hideaway and
Then Freddie King.
Yeah.
But so we all went from like surf music to doo-wop and R&B and British Invasion and soul and funk and into psychedelic and beyond.
Yeah.
The Latin rock kind of evolved into it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, we kind of Latinized, as I say, in the late 60s.
Yeah. Definitely. And Hector, is it the Village Callers? Did Hector?
Oh, they're instrumental, yeah.
Yeah.
And they were the first group to do Evil Ways, before Santana did. It was a Willie Bobo song, but they were the first kind of Latino rock band to do it. And then Santana had the big hit with it.
I used to go to their rehearsals.
Oh, the Village Callers?
I got in there, but I remember sitting in the house listening to them rehearse and just watching them put songs together.
You did the same thing with Evergreen Blues. You were kind of like Forrest Gump showing up.
I was, man. Just invisible. I try to shrink into the wall.
Oh, that was a good way to network, though.
Yeah. But now their song Hector was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah. Just like our record wound up in a major movie in 2017, Get Your Baby. The Escorts wound up in Logan Lucky 50 years later, and same with Hector, like 50, 60 years later, winds up in a major movie.
Yeah.
The Romancers have had songs, in movies, and Maxi Byers, and a lot of them wound up in movies way decades later.
That's good.
There you have it.
Yeah.
I think we covered it, don't you?
I think so.
I'm exhausted. I know you're exhausted because again, we've been took us hours to get this going, and you hadn't even eaten when we started doing this.
I still haven't eaten.
I had some menudo before we started.
Yeah.
Breakfast of Champions.
I did for sure.
But no, I'm kind of fried too. But hey, but I knew you'd be a good interview, man. You're a great storyteller. You got a good memory, even at this age.
No.
And a hell of a lot of experiences and East LA music stories. So you were perfect as a guest on the show.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. I really enjoyed it. I was looking forward to it, and I hope it comes out okay. You might be able to save about half an hour.
Yeah, I'm gonna edit the hell out of it and see what happens, but it's gonna be good. It's gonna take a while. I may wait a day or two to start because I'm kind of fried. But thanks for doing it, man, and did a great job. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man.